Hey, this is The Sword and the Pen and my very second ever live stream. We're going to be talking about the Rings of Power and what could have been. It's going to be a 2-hour live stream divided into 6 segments. That includes a 5-minute break right in the very middle. It'll start with and end with a freestyle chat where we can talk about anything. But for the rest of it, I kind of want to try to stay on topic. I've got, we're going to talk about the Rings of Power and the lore that is actually in existence. We're going to talk about the show itself and what it did. And then we're also going to talk about how we could have maybe fixed some of the stuff that they did try to do. And obviously they had a story, but it failed to be something we were super engaged in for the most part. So I want to discuss that. And then in the final freestyle chat, we'll make sure to have it a little bit extra long this time so that everybody gets a chance to talk. And before we begin, though, I want to go really quickly over the rules. There's just 3 really quick rules. The first one is I want everybody to keep it real tame in the chat. I'd like this to be a monetized video if possible, but I have to keep it at PG-13 or more tame. I don't have any moderators that can help me, but I can boot people out and give them timeout. And I can also blur out the chat if I have to afterwards, just in case it gets like too raunchy. But just pretend that grandma is reading everything and we should be okay in that respect. Rule number 2 is tag me to address me. So as I said, there's going to be different segments where we have specific topics, and I want to try to kind of stick to those just a little bit better. But if you want to directly address me and there are too many messages in the chat and I'm having to skip them, the only way I'm not going to skip you for sure is if you've tagged me, and you're going to have to write in @theswordandthepen reflections with no spaces. And the third rule is tell me if I mess up. I'm still learning this whole process. I've got some new stuff that I've put on here, and I just want to make sure that everything is working technically. So if you can't hear me or something, you got to tell me. You got to, like, everybody just say what's wrong. Like if it's, the sound is echoey or whatever, I won't know because I can hear nothing. I can't hear anything. I've got earbuds in, but I really can't hear anything. I don't know if I know why I'm wearing them if I can't hear anything, but I can't. Anyway, so those are the rules. I think we should be good to go and go ahead and move along to get started with our very first subject. So, that being said, all right, so I said that I would start out with a freestyle chat, and that's what we're going to do. Quick freestyle. I'll just go through as quick as I can. Hopefully we get this done before 5:10. So, I see Tony Hank saying wool, or you meant whoop. Okay. I don't know if you're like, you're trimming some sheep or something. All of the adaptations shown in the picture, Dune is by far the best. That was from Stephen Doran. I think I got that right. Yeah, I think Dune definitely was the best. And you know what? It took a lot of liberties, but it did it in a way to complement the world that was already established. Dude Guy says, evening, y'all. Summit, how's it going? Says, what is the dude with the lightsaber from? I don't recognize him. And Save Yourself says, Yord from Acolyte. Meh. Yeah, I agree with everything that Save Yourself just said. It's from the Acolyte, which was, well, I haven't finished the series or watched the most recent episodes. I stopped at the one where they all went like, the power of one, the power of two, the power of many. It was just too much for me after that. I'm like, I can't do this. Save Yourself says, morning, evening, y'all. Summit says, happy time zone. Yep, I guess. Mr. Benair, good morning, everyone. Charles Halverson, one of my Hobbit tier patrons, says, happy evening. Daniel Heron, thanks for the super chat, $2. Daniel has his own channel where he talks about movie soundtracks. You guys should go check it out. Skippy Longshanks, hey, how's it going? Happy Friday, everyone. Prototype, good evening, morning, good evening. Save Yourself says, hope everyone in the U.S. had a happy Merca Day. Had a pretty good one, just chilling out at Mom and Dad's. Winter Rose, good morning, everyone from the UK, nice. Must be really early there. Mr. Benair, I just want everyone to know there is a tempest in me, or at least excess hot air. Oh, thanks for the super chat. Is that an Australian $5? I think we've had this conversation before. Thank you. Summit, 40 seconds. Oh my gosh, is that how far behind I am? Luke H says, tame as a kitten. Well, I mean, you don't have to be that tame. Save Yourself. Grandma has a tempest in her as well, Mr. Benair. Mr. Benair, haha. Dane Bornhold, how's it going? I have a shout out for your live stream on Monday planned at the end of this. If I forget, you make sure to remind me. My grandmas have both passed. Thankfully, I was born PG-13. That's the best rating to be born in. Cursed Kelpie, hello. Save Yourself, Acolyte. It was a show. Yeah, it was. It was a show. And Prototype says, Celebrimbor would have been the ideal MC for a story about how the rings were made. Gotta agree with that. Alan Bird, The Wheel of Time, Season 2, 30-second opinion, go. Me, Season 2? I mean, the dialogue was better than Season 1. Unfortunately, I didn't care. I didn't care that anything was happening because there was no reason for me to be invested in these characters. They were already established as characters. I just said I couldn't invest in them. I really couldn't invest in them. None of them were good. None of them were kind. None of them were people who I really wanted to see succeed. And especially Moiraine, my gosh, in the beginning of Season 2, she just became like the worst character ever. I mean, I wanted her to die, and she didn't, unfortunately. Yeah, in Season 2, they introduced Elaine, but they've done so little with her that I'm just like, okay, she's just an extra character. And then she absorbed an arrow at the end, which was bizarre, but I guess they've decided to say, okay, she's a healer, but they didn't introduce that, even though that's her thing in the book. She was into healing animals and stuff, and now they're like, well, actually, she just likes to brew beer, but then suddenly, right at the crucial moment of the climax, she can heal too, which is not something you need to learn how to do, I guess. BSR says, The Sword in the Pen Reflections. Hey, Amber, do you ever play, run TTRPGs, D&D, etc.? It's where most of my world building efforts go these days. So I've never played D&D. I would like to. I actually have a friend who, he's I don't know what you call it, like some sort of a master or something. He's really good and he runs campaigns all the time. And I've heard they're hilarious because they do some ridiculous things, and I've always wanted to sit in on it. Charles Halverson, I am so excited to hear your takes on this show. Me too. Sometimes I don't know what I'm going to say until I realize I have to say something, but I mean, this was one of those shows where right from the beginning, it was pretty obvious what some of their big errors were. Cursed Kelpie, how is the Silmarillion going? Do you like it? Okay, so I downloaded the audiobook, and it's going to be my shower listen. I'll listen to it every time I'm taking a shower. I did not start it yet, so I have to say I have not, because the last time that I took a shower, which was just today, I was listening to this one YouTuber who did what the Rings of Power should have done. Somebody sent it to me in the comments, and I was like so fascinated. So I can't wait to read the Silmarillion or understand what the lore really is, because it's just such a mistake to not adapt what Tolkien has already done, because he clearly put some beautiful and very interesting stories into his lore. Oki Native. Is it Oki Native? At this point in my life, I just watch trusted YouTube reviewers waste their life watching these shows. The slow descent into madness is more entertaining than the show. Well, you're welcome for that. Dane Bornhold. Alan Bird, is this a Rings of Power stream? We need to give Amber a break. Oh, no, that's okay. I don't mind talking about that stuff. This is the free chat. All right, I'm going to get through just a couple more, and then we're going to go to the first subject. Praterson, I think I got that. Too many live streams at once tonight. May just lurk in this one, as I didn't watch Rings of Power, and I'm not much of a Tolkien fan anyway. Wow, thanks for the viewing number. Yeah, it might just be a mess anyway. Dane Bornhold, not sure Rings of Power will be therapeutic. Yeah. Anthony says, The Acolyte is such a weird show. It's like they had a basic idea of what they wanted to do and then forgot to write any characters or stuff. I think for some reason my text box is cut off. Or stuff for them to do. Yeah, that seems to be the big problem nowadays. Alan Bird, great recap. Oki Native says, make sure this friend means DM, aka Dungeon Master for games, and not the other kind. You may make that mistake 2 or 3 times tops. I don't think I'll make that mistake. It's 1 a.m. in the UK, so I won't be staying for the whole live stream. That's fine. All right, I'm going to go through these real quick. Glubby Snot says, hope everyone is having a glubtacular afternoon. Awoken Ember, the lore is so compelling. That's my favorite thing in everything. They did Galadriel dirty, said that in a comment to you before. I agree, just from the small bits that I know. Let's see. It's Oak East or Oki or Oki. Oh, got it. From Oklahoma and Native. Got it. Oki Native. Got it. I think I got it now. Prototype says, why couldn't they just do the tale of Beren and Luthien? Why? Okay, we're going to hopefully get into that. And Skippy Longshakes says, good morning, UKers. You're talking to the British folks. All right. Whew. Let's move along from this, though, and get into our first topic.
Move along. Move along.
All right. So, very first thing that I want to talk about here is what stories Tolkien should have, what Tolkien stories of early Middle Earth should have been adapted. And if you are somebody who knows the lore, I want to hear from you, because I'm very new to it, and I'm hope to become more fluent in what he has already spelled out. But just all these tales that people are telling me about, the little details, there's so many small things that could have been an entire story all on its own. And if you're not aware, the Silmarillion is essentially written like a history book, where you're just reading about events. You're not getting like the detailed moments, where, Elrond said this and Galadriel, retorted blah, blah, blah. It's not a narration of a scene like that. It is just the main events and things that happened at certain points in history. So it's really open to what you could do with it. And And he put so much detail into just that. You could literally take a small snippet and say, ooh, let's do a mini series about just this one event, and it probably would have worked. Let's see. Liam Atkins says, oh, enjoy the reviews. Shame Amazon has poisoned the well so bad on these properties, especially when they can make decent stuff like Fallout, The Boys, Invincible. Yeah, agree. Laura Burkholtz says, except they don't have the rights to Beren and Luthien. That's in the Silmarillion. So, okay, I may be wrong in this, but I went to a writers' conference about 2 years ago, and one of the speakers there is a very successful writer here in Arizona. I wish I could remember her name, but I can't. And she had one of her stories stolen by Disney. They approached her about adapting it into a made-for-TV movie. And she wasn't she was interested. They were in discussions about it, but suddenly they said, never mind, we're not interested. And then they went and made a movie of the exact same story. The characters were named the same. Like, it was the same. They had like just a few little changes here and there. And I can't remember the exact percentage, but it's ridiculously small, like only 10%. They were able to get away with it because she tried to fight them for something. Hey, you guys just made a bunch of money off of my book. But she couldn't because they were able to argue that they changed like 10% of the story. That's all it has to be. And I don't even know, like, how do you pull that and, measure that? How do you quantify 10% of a story? Like, do you change 10% of the characters' names, 10% of the dialogue, which would happen anyway, just in adaptation, because you can't adapt an entire book line for line unless it's a short story, then which can be done. And I would love to see more short stories adapted. But so for the Silmarillion, they might not have been able to adapt it exactly, but I think they had the ability to adapt a lot of it, and they just chose not to. I think that there were specific events they really wanted to do. So let me look at a couple of these here. Laura says, all Amazon has is the appendices to The Lord of the Rings, as I understand it. Yeah, that's what I heard as well. But again, I think that they had the ability to do a lot more. I think that just saying we don't have the Silmarillion was their excuse for not adapting much more closely than they did. Which, honestly, if you're going to adapt, okay, let's say that they had to adapt, they could adapt it, but they had to change 10% of it. That's so little. You just change 1 in 10 points. That it's so small. I'm certain that it's a very tiny percentage like that. Let's see. Oh, sorry, I didn't read this one. Dude Guy says, seemed like they tried to adapt Morgoth's story without ever mentioning his name or the key events. Copyright issues are tough, I guess. They briefly mentioned Morgoth, but it was not. Yeah, it was not one of the main plots. I thought that was a real mistake to talk about Morgoth in the prologue, but then not go into his story and use him as the main antagonist. I mean, you spent the whole prologue talking about Morgoth, and then suddenly right at the end you're like, and he's gone, but there's this other guy, Sauron. He was under Morgoth, so, not as powerful, and we just defeated Morgoth, so you would think, mathematically we should be able to take out Sauron, but we can't. For some reason, he's disappeared, and, he's building up his forces, and I'm going, this is bad. If you look at the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings, he didn't do that. He spent all that time talking about the rings. What was the ring? And Sauron. Like, those were the two characters we were learning about in the prologue of the Lord of the Rings. And it set us up going, oh, now we know there's this dark power that has fallen into the hands of the hobbits. And so, we had that dread of knowing that this is a big dark thing that is going to, take over their lives at some point. Okay, Cursed Kelpie says, Beren and Luthien for sure. The professor loved that story, but I don't think the estate would sell the rights to it. I mean, I wouldn't, maybe they only sold what they sold because they didn't trust Amazon, and they were like, you know what, I don't think you're going to do a good job anyway, so we're just going to give you the bare minimum, and good luck. It's not going to work out anyway. Glubby Snot, that's a odd name. Glubby Snot. I'd love to have seen Ungoliant's events adapted. The OG giant spider, yeah, who was, from what I understand, the one who's responsible for destroying the trees, the 2 trees of light. Doesn't that sound fascinating? And she's related to Sauron. She's related to Sauron? I did not hear that. That's interesting. I would have thought Shelob. BSR says, I personally would have preferred a show about the Dunedain Rangers hunting werewolves and such. I wanted a group of people on a quest. Fallout was a quest. Yeah, Fallout was in the style of a quest. And you know what? I think that they were trying to go for something like that with Galadriel, but it just didn't end up being something that we all felt. She didn't have a specific goal. And I know it sounds like, oh, she wanted to go back and get Sauron. That's not specific enough. If she just randomly wants to go back to hunt down Sauron, it's just too broad. If there was some specific thing that had happened to make her go, oh my gosh, I really have to go and get him because everybody's wrong. And like, that's why I wanted her to have a vision or something, because I felt like if it was a vision, then maybe she would she would have some proof then, some kind of proof that something is going on. Sauron is there. Everybody's going to be killed. Something more specific. But just for her to I just want to go and continue my mission, it was hard to get behind that, especially with how she was treating everybody. Luke H. I don't know why my selected chat is cutting off, but it is. But I can see the whole thing. Says, they could have gone high fantasy and did the creation myth with all the Valar and the fall of Melkor, but probably too similar to the book of Genesis for comfort. Possibly. I don't know the specifics of this story, but it does. I remember that it so Tolkien and what is it? C.S. Lewis, even though Tolkien did not like, allegory. And C.S. Lewis, his whole story of Narnia was basically allegory. They both had the same ideas, the same principles of what is good and what is evil in their creation myths for Narnia and Middle Earth, which is essentially that there was goodness and then sort of like a sour note was thrown into the song of good creation. That's literally what happens in Narnia. I know that Aslan was singing a beautiful song or something, and then another, I think it was the witch or somebody came in and sang a sour note, and then that was the cause of creation. Not that the sour note was what caused creation, but I think there's something similar in Tolkien. If I'm wrong, let me know. I'm not 100% sure, but I seem to recall had something to do with that. If the number is, Summit says, if the number is that small, why do they pay anyone for anything ever? Maybe because then they can bring the fans in. So, if they get to claim that it's an adaptation, then the fans of the source material will become a pre-existing audience. Joshua Fears, I think it depends on what their goal for a TV show is. If they want a long-running show, they should have bought the rights to the Silmarillion first. Yeah, they definitely should have. It was just a mistake to decide, we're going to tell this story, and then they couldn't get the rights to the material, like the most expansive set of material for that particular story. Get your rights first and then figure out what you're going to adapt, because then you'll know what you're allowed to adapt. I just think they had their heart set on Galadriel, and that was not good. Charles Halverson says, I would have loved a show about Turinbar. Who is that? You gotta tell me who that is. Dane Bornhold, Tolkien Estate could sue Amazon to oblivion, but an unknown author with no money to hire an army of lawyers. Yeah, that's true. The Tolkien Estate could sue them. That's a very good point. But I wonder if there was discussion behind the scenes, like how close can we get it, before we're in trouble. I've always wanted to be a fly on the wall in the writers' rooms of some of these shows, just because I want to know what was the discussion. Joshua Fears, but ideally they should embrace the massive timescale that Tolkien's lore and the elves work on. I really wanted to see, a story where we're following the elves, or maybe a certain group of them, and we're seeing the ages of men come and go. And because we would have never seen another show like that I can think of. I can't think of a fantasy show where we were following, except maybe, what was it? What was that? Is it called Cloud Atlas? I can't remember what it was. There was some movie where it took place over several generations, or maybe it was Other Worlds. I saw it once and I didn't particularly care for it to see it again, so I don't remember it. But I think that would have been really unique. And I think that the guy who I was listening to on the YouTube just this afternoon when I was taking a shower, he was talking about how it was kind of a wimpy excuse, like, oh, we're not going to do that because, you don't want to have all your human characters dying off. People get attached to them and then they die. Just make enough interesting human characters. Have it be a tragedy that they died and that the elves have to go on without them. What a unique story. Prototype. Do we know if they wanted to buy parts of the Silmarillion? Because there isn't a lot recognizable stuff in the Silmarillion. There's characters like Galadriel and even Elrond, but that's it. I saw a few vague similarities, but not enough that I could say that it's, like I said, I haven't read most of the Silmarillion, but what I have of what people say, like it's very much different. Like a lot of events were completely ignored that would have been crucial for specific characters, especially Galadriel. I did hear that they want to compress several different ages into one, which, okay. It just seems like that's a recipe for a lot of mistakes. People don't like it when you do things like that. Things happen in the order that they happen in for a reason. Like it's called thematic buildup. You want to lead your story to a certain conclusion in order to illustrate your theme. And moving events around it's tricky business. It can be done, but you have to be, it's like expert level plotting at that point. Let's see, Tolkien himself sold the rights to The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings a long time ago. It was the appendices and the timelines at the end of Lord of the Rings that were sold recently. Okay. Laura also says, now that Christopher Tolkien is dead, it might all be up for sale soon. Oh, so that's his son or grandson. I can't remember which one. I know it was one of them. And he was like in charge of what happened to all the material. Prototype says, Isildur shouldn't have been in Rings of Power according to the timeline. Amazon shoehorned him and his father in this timeline. I wonder, though, if this is supposed to be like an ancestor, like they're going to say it's an ancestor. Maybe. And that Isildur was named after this Isildur. Dane Bornhold, I understand the sale of the rights to Amazon was from one particular inheritor of the Tolkien estate. Other Tolkiens are having none of it. I feel bad for all of them. It always sucks when the ownership goes to people who don't understand how sacred something is. I'm surprised they didn't put Galadriel on a cross or have her rise from her tomb. I'm not sure what the intention was with Galadriel, but whatever it was, it didn't go over well with most audiences. Laura says, I just wish they would do original stories set in that world instead of bastardizing stuff Tolkien did a lot better. Yeah, I think that would be the dream. Let's see, I need to catch up here. I'll just go through a couple more. Sorry, I didn't mean that Ungoliant was related to Sauron. I meant that her story closely ties to his. Okay, so it would have made sense since they wanted Sauron in the show. Also, yes, I love my name. Dude guy, figured this show would have been a decent chance to explore the Blue Wizards, even with strict copyright. So little there that's be protected, but instead we got Gandalf from Wish. What? I'm not sure I understand all of that comment, but yeah, I do know that there's very little known about there's two Blue Wizards, right? And then there's a whole group of these higher beings, and there's very little information about them. You could have done so much with that. But at the same time, when you define something that's ambiguous, you make it seem smaller. This always happens. I think I've used, and I stole this from Hello Future Me because I couldn't put it to words, but he did it very well. He said, when you do a prequel, you tend to take something that could be anything and say, actually, it's this. And there's always a little bit of, oh, that wasn't quite as interesting as what I thought it was going to be. Even if it's something that is very creative and, does a really good job at making things big, it's not usually going to ring well with people who in their minds thought it could be anything, like Darth Vader. Seeing the story of Darth Vader in the prequel series diminished his character because we're like, oh, he's just a guy who made a bad decision and started abusing his girlfriend. He's not this mysterious guy who we don't know what happened, but it must have been awful because he turned from the good side to the bad side. Okay, I got to skip over a few here to get caught up. Prototype says, The Sword in the Pen reflections Galadriel's motivation in Rings of Power makes no sense if you know the lore. She had other brothers, and Finrod died fighting werewolves to help his friend Beren. I've heard that the brother had a really noble, self-sacrificing death, and they just kind of and he died in battle. That's very sad. It's always going to be disappointing. Gonna skip a couple. I don't think I've read anything from this person. Anthony L. If they were fixed on Numenor, they should have told a story about the rise of Numenor and its politics. Keep Galadriel and the rings out of it. I think, yeah, they told too many stories. That's always a mistake. And especially the Harfoots. I'm not sure why the Harfoots were in there at all, except to be and this happens to be where Gandalf landed. BSR says, the tale of Sauron the Deceiver tricking the elves is painted as such an interesting tale, but they rushed it in half an episode at the end of the season. Yeah, wouldn't it have been awesome if he's helping them and they're, figuring out how to forge the rings, and it's this really big deal because the rings are going to be used to, help revitalize Middle-earth. And then in the end, you find out that the guy who helped you design them and figure out how to make them was actually the big bad guy. That would have been such a huge revelation. You get to the end of that and you go, oh my gosh, the build up. But yeah, doing it in half an episode, no way. Okian Native says, those copyright discussions would have been between the showrunner, the head writer, and a room full of lawyers. And I use the term writer loosely. Well, okay, we can talk more about that, hopefully in a different subject. But I think that the writers have way less power than we think. KCY says, if going really crazy, Landis pitched an idea where an oil rig discovers the remains of M.E. and the Ringwraiths. Who's M.E.? Am I missing something? Malchior? No. You're gonna have to tell me who M.E. is. Potential Cate Blanchett, conspicuous casting? I'm not 100% sure I caught what that message means, but an oil rig. I mean, the what do they call the orcs were super industrious by the time we get to the Lord of the Rings, and I could imagine them doing things like this. Cursed Kelpie says Turin Turnabar is from the story The Children of Hurin, a tragedy and a sad story from the First Age. It's really good, though. I do know that one's supposed to be really good. It's most people's favorites from what I have heard, and I do want to read that one. Okay. Skipping ahead a little bit, and I think we're gonna, Middle-earth. Oh, duh, I should have. Sometimes I'm really thick. Casey says Middle-earth again. Travis James, hello. Oh, hello. And Charles Halverson says Middle-earth. Thank you guys for filling me in on all that stuff. I think I'll go back and grab one more here. Finrod was also the first elf allowed to be reincarnated and even went back to Middle-earth. Wow, that would have been interesting, because then you dive into I wouldn't call it religion, but their I would say the mythology, and it's part of the mythology of Middle-earth. What constitutes being reborn. Prototype says the channel The Closer Look had a rewrite of Galadriel's story. He had her motivation to find Sauron be that she is a shell-shocked veteran who wants to make the world safe for her daughter. I kind of like that. That could work. I think it's better than what they did for sure. I mean, I'm still not 100% sure that they knew exactly what they wanted to do. But, okay, let's see. I think we're almost at... Oh, no, we go another 8 minutes. Whew. I hope I'm not rushing. I don't want to rush through any of this. Cursed Kelpie. Any story from the First Age would be hard to do since everything is interconnected. I don't know. Okay, so... Oh, sorry. There it is. That was that comment. Everything being interconnected. When you are... Let's see. When you are... Did I skip a... Oh my gosh. Save yourself. I skipped your very generous $50 Australian super chat. Thank you. I'll come right back to where I was before. I don't think copyright is the issue. Amazon ruined Wheel of Time with full access to the material. Similarly, Disney with Star Wars, true. Activist writers are ruining shows in trying to improve classics with current day politics. This gets to the point that I definitely want to discuss more, but from what I have learned, and I know I've said it maybe in the last live stream in a couple of comments in the comments of my videos, I've learned about the behind the scenes politics of writing a show, and there is a lot of pressure from much higher up executives. Like, let's say your writer's room consists of like 3 really good writers, and they're all working on the show, and they've, it's all looking good. They've got their draft one, everything seems right. Well, then you're going to have people who are in charge of managing them, and then people who are, in charge of the people managing them. And what's happening is several steps above, executives are stepping in, and they are terrified of their show getting any kind of backlash. And so they're saying, okay, we gotta make this more politically correct. We need to do this thing to change it. Like, you need to make sure you include a character that, that identifies with, a certain demographic of our audience, or, of the US or whatever. And even if it doesn't fit into the story thematically, the writers have to do this because that's like their boss's boss's boss. And even if you've got people underneath, they're saying, no, this is going to throw everything off. Those executives are going to say, no, that's not going to work. Like, we need to make sure that we are, covering our own butts and protecting our material, making sure that we've covered all our bases, etc. And unfortunately, they often have no understanding of storytelling, so you can't even argue with them what, this is what you have to do and why. They'll just say, no, this is what you have to do. And another thing is, I don't know how involved this is in changing things in a script, but there are also higher up executives who simply won't approve of something because they themselves don't like it. But they're not writers, they're not storytellers, they are businessmen and businesswomen who don't understand that there is an audience for certain types of material. So my friend at Netflix that I was talking to was telling me about how that happens a lot, where Netflix will pass up on a show. Like, we're not going to do that because some executive who was presented with the material said, I don't like this. And then it went off to another studio and became a huge success. Why? Because the executive who looked at it said, I don't like it, but didn't recognize that somebody will like this. Like, this is actually very good to a certain group, a certain audience. Like, maybe it's a comedy show. Maybe it's not your kind of comedy, but there is somebody who is an audience for this particular comedy. And then guess what? Some other studio picks it up and it's a huge success because they do it exactly as it is. And what do you know? There was a very big audience for it. And just have the inability to recognize that sort of thing I think is a big problem. All right, I'm going to scooch down to where I was before, and then I had to stop. It was from Cursed Kelpie. Any story from the First Age would be hard to do since everything is interconnected. I think that actually that's everything being interconnected can create a sense of mystery, and like, we want to know more about the world. If you can keep your story condensed to just a couple of characters and include enough information to keep us fully engrossed in just these particular characters, it can make us want more of the others. Like, start out small and then expand as the story goes on. I think it was a mistake for Rings of Power to start. How many storylines do we have? We have Galadriel, we've got Gandalf and the Harfoots, which kind of becomes 2 separate stories at a certain point. Then we've got, how do you say his name? Is it Arendil? I don't remember the guy. And Bronwyn, the love story there that was, I'm not sure why they included a love story there, but there was that story there. And then you've got Sauron kind of almost having his own story, and then you've got Numenor having their own story. It just felt like we were in too many places to start, and that ended up working against the show because we never got attached to one particular character. And we started out with Galadriel. We should have been really attached to her, but they made some mistakes there. Let's see, skipping ahead a little bit. Save yourself. I think your filter missed my super chat. I think I went back and got it. Sorry about that. I'm trying to figure this out, but thank you. Thank you for the super chat. Every little bit helps, folks. Okay, skipping ahead. BSR says, I don't think modern day politics helped Rings of Power, but it wasn't the reason it failed. I agree with that. It failed at basic storytelling, bad setups, bad payoffs, poor character arcs. Yeah, having too many things that are wrong with it, the more that's wrong with it, the less forgiving we are. And that's just, it's unfortunate that they started out so rough. Skipping ahead a smidge. Any more? Oh, nope, we didn't have any more. Okay, so let's see next. Prototype. I've also heard that Celebrian, I hope I got that right, Galadriel's daughter, would make a good MC for an original story set in this age if they really wanted a brash and inexperienced elf girl as an MC. I heard that too. I think I heard it on somebody else's video, so that wasn't I didn't think of that in a bit. But I think that defining Galadriel the way that they did in Rings of Power was not a smart move. Snail Princess. That's an interesting name. Similarly for Rings of Power, if they couldn't get the rights to enough to tell the story, they should make something else. Yeah, definitely agree with that. Cursed Kelpie. If they made a show from the time Melkor was released from prison until the end of the War of Wrath, it would be the greatest show in history if they did it right, but they probably won't. Yeah, I don't know if I honestly think that Rings of Power is not going to make it to its 5th season. I will be really impressed if it makes it past a 3rd season. Just like I think that, what did I say about Wheel of Time? It's probably not going to make it past season 4. Like, I'll be stunned if it makes past season 3. But Rings of Power, I'll be pretty impressed if it makes it past season 3. Dude guy. Talking to @Sparrow. Let's see. Joshua Fears. Can you adapt a work while changing the themes that the original work is based on? So many of these bad shows fail or have no intention of doing the themes of the original work. The theme is the soul of the story. If you change the theme, it will change your characters. It will change the events, because if your characters are changed, it's not going to make sense that certain events happen. It's a very bad idea to change the themes. And themes are I think I've said this in other videos, where the themes are so connected to your character arcs. Like, the character arc is defined by what the theme is. And if you have to cut out a theme, that usually involves cutting out a character at some point or changing the character in some way so that theme, we don't have enough time to address that particular theme. But the nice thing about themes is they are the most flexible out of everything. You can actually maneuver your characters and your stories to achieve something with a theme. Okay, let me give an example. In the Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson movies, Sam does not leave Frodo at any point. But in the in the movies, he leaves Frodo. Frodo basically tells Sam, like, get lost in is it Return of the King? Is it Return of the King? With Shelob? Oh my gosh, I'm so backwards. Anyway, I can't remember which one it is. I think it's Return of the King. Yes, it is Return of the King. So Frodo tells Sam, like, get lost. I don't want you to be part of this. Go home. And Sam is really upset. And then he realizes that Gollum was deceiving Frodo and Sam. So he goes off to save Frodo. That whole bit there didn't happen like that. Sam was with Frodo through all of this, and they added this in because Sam and Frodo's journey had to be reduced. Some of their adventures had to be cut out so that when we get to Peter Jackson's film, we go, okay, if a bunch of this stuff had to be cut out, we're not seeing how hard it is for Sam to actually stay with Frodo. Like, the things that Frodo started doing, the changes that were happening in him, we didn't get to see a whole lot of that. So how can we show that in some way that doesn't last too long, but it's really dramatic? And like, well, we'll have Frodo be deceived by Gollum and send Sam away. And that's how that happened. And then Sam came back to save him. So that's how they did that. But see, the theme of this loyalty on Sam's part, being there for somebody who didn't even want him to be there for him, that right there was kept. Katya says, super chat, $2. Thank you. Very much appreciated. Patrick Marchand? Marchand. You are talking about Conan, which became House of the Dragons. I don't know if that was at me. Charles Halverson, I would love to see the backstory of Adam. I wasn't really a fan of the show, but I felt like his story would be more interesting. Adam? Did I miss who Adam is? Matt says, leaving the woke stuff aside, the primary writing problem for Rings of Prime is that they compressed 3,400 years of story into like 5 years. That's always going to be a problem. And I think that's just the idea in Hollywood right now, that slow pacing is something you want to avoid. You know, like, oh, what we should do is we should have action happening all the time. We should have big, huge conflict, you know, where characters cannot achieve their objectives. Depending on what's going on inside the characters, you can do a lot externally and it still feels tense. It still feels like we're struggling. Like Sam and Frodo did not go through a whole lot. In comparison to a lot of the other characters, you know, there wasn't much more than we're just traveling and we're coming across obstacles on our way to Mount Doom. But because we saw conflict in their relationship with each other, it still felt tense all the way to the end. The First Age does reach soap opera levels of interconnectedness on a few points, but that's a feature, not a bug. An anti-hero in one storyline is the villain in the storyline of another character. Oh, wouldn't that have been fun to see two sides of a war or a conflict, you know, where we're sympathizing with both sides? That would have been unique. I think we wanted a unique story. I'm behind. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here. I'm going to read whatever's labeled to me, and then we're going to switch to the next subject. When you adapt a property, you need to write to its strengths, I think is what it was meant to be said there. Lord of the Rings' strengths are exploration, cool set pieces, camaraderie, and faith. None of that was present. I think there's a lot in just, even if we're talking about the films alone, the Peter Jackson films alone, there's a lot that was present there that felt like it was missing from Rings of Power. I think one of them is simply the idea that evil is so powerful and so huge that the presence of the evil in this world, we should fight against it, even though it will be a losing battle. That did not come up. And I know that at the very end, you know, Mordor explode, you know, we get the creation of Mount Doom, and all of that, but I felt a very deep lack of the presence of evil in a lot of our characters' stories. In Galadriel especially, I felt like it was an enemy, a physical enemy, rather than an internal spiritual one, until we got towards like the very, very end. And redemption is also a huge part of his stories. Skipping ahead a bit. Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead, though, and switch to our next subject because I want to make sure that we cover everything that I want to discuss here. So we're going to move along.
Move along. Move along.
Okay, for this next segment, which will be a little shorter than the last one, I really want to do this. This is one of my favorite things to do with stories, and this is why when I do my videos, for the most part, I'm discussing things that have happened and saying, I didn't like it because of this, and maybe I would have preferred this. I like to brainstorm what could have fixed this story. So let's pretend that we are the editors of Draft 1 of Rings of Power. Changing as little as possible, how would you have fixed it? That's what I would like to talk about now. Even keeping some of the ridiculous storylines, like, okay, we have the romance with, the Arondir, I think that's his name, and Bronwyn. Keeping the Harfoots, keeping Galadriel and her encountering Sauron and them going to Numenor together. Like, I want to keep all this stuff. What little changes could we have made to have fixed what they did? All right, I'm just going to read a couple of these Beck comments here. Patrick Marchand Marchand says Conan was rejected by Netflix and showrunner was hired for House of the Dragon, which became a success. Conan was rejected by Netflix. So Netflix was going to do Conan, like Conan the Barbarian. Is that right? Or was that the name of the showrunner? I don't know the name of the showrunner for any of this. And he was hired for House of the Dragon, which became a success. House of the Dragon, for me, does have some issues, but at least it's keeping to a sophisticated style of writing and storytelling. It's not the most engaging, like at least season 1. I have not started season 2 yet. I have a feeling that if it's really good, I'm going to want to binge it, so I'll wait till most of the episodes are out. Andrew Finger says, oh, this is a message for Glubby Snot. Charles Halverson. Sorry, autocorrect changed Adar to Adam. Oh, okay. Okie Native says, I didn't want a unique story for Wheel of Time or Rings. I just wanted a well-written one. 0 for 2. Yeah, you know what? I'm okay with taking liberties with an adaptation as long as they have stuck with the themes and they've honored the things that happened in the source material, in the original source material. If they're calling it an adaptation, if they're just going to say it was inspired by, you can do whatever you want as long as it turns out very good. Whatever it is that they have done, it's on its own, it's good. That's fine with me. Patrick Marchand says, at the creation of Mordor, I think it meant to be and the creation of Mordor was beyond stupid. Mount Doom was already around in the First Age. I didn't know that it was already around. I did think it was awfully weird that Mount Doom was created mechanically with with canals, and it seemed odd. Again, it made Mount Doom less than what it was. It was this huge, imposing volcano that, was the heart of Mordor. Sauron forges the ring in there. It almost makes you think like the creation of Mount Doom should have been almost something done in creation, something that's so old and so powerful just on its own. Like there's special properties to Mount Doom's, the lava inside Mount Doom on its own anyway. But because they're like, no, actually these orcs dug like a trench and they mixed the water with some lava that already was there, with a tinier Mount Doom, and then it just made the mountain even bigger. It made it less mystical. Matt says, Melkor created Mount Doom. The reason Sauron put Mordor where it was is because he wanted to use the volcano empowered by Melkor. Okay, so explain that. Let's see. We're supposed to be talking about changing as little as possible. How would you have fixed Rings of Power? We're getting back to the original source material. That happens. Let's see. It's weird. I'm getting messages sooner in one window and later in another window. Are things not updating properly? Patrick Markand says, and not condensing over 3,000 years into a few months. Yeah, I think that was a bad idea. Cursed Kelpie says, how to fix it? Drop to Hobbit storyline and focus more on drop the Hobbit storyline and focus more on the creation of the rings instead of leaving it for the last episode. Yeah, they definitely should have done that. I'm honestly kind of baffled that they had an entire show called Rings of Power, and it felt like the rings were just this like, that'll be the climax. And I'm going, I don't know. It doesn't always work to have the climax be the main point of the show. You should at least build up to it in a way that we go, okay, we can see how everything is leading there. I didn't see how anything was leading there until it was like suddenly we were in, what was his name? Celebrimbor? No, what was Gilgalad? Whatever. The guy making the rings. We were suddenly in the forge that he had built mostly off screen. And then it's like, oh yeah, we got to make something. Anthony L. says, the biggest fix for Rings of Power would be to let the storylines breathe. Yeah, give them time and not make everything seem like it happens in a week. I think that comes back to the whole, people seem to want or people who are writing stories in Hollywood right now seem to think that you need to have, extreme action and tension all the time, and it has to be related to the action. I think there's a misunderstanding. We want conflict, we want tension, but that can be entirely an internal conflict, an internal tension, or a what do you call it, a personal relationship sort of tension. Like I personally, I was more invested in, what was the elf, Elrond and Doran. And I was like, why are they not friends anymore? What happened? When they first started talking to each other, and then Doran's like, dude, you missed out on most of my life. You think that you can just come in here and like be my friend when you're not around? We were great friends, and then you just disappeared and came back. Even though I was like, that seems like, some sort of it's almost like not melodrama. It's a lesser style of drama, but these are two people who are supposed to be very close friends. And I was surprised that I'm invested in this, actually. I wanted to understand why he was upset. Like, what did Elrond do that was so bad? And then I was like, okay, he lives for so long that it doesn't even occur to him like, oh, you don't live so long. Things happen quickly in your life. And I missed out on basically all of it. Let's see. Joshua Fears says the show Valinor ad it should as it should be, I think. The original reason for Galadriel leaving Valinor also explain why the elves can't go back. So correct me if I'm wrong in this. From what I know, Galadriel, basically there was kind of a group of elves in Valinor, and when the light of Valinor was extinguished, they wanted they wanted basically revenge for that. I might be wrong, but they were sort of like saying, okay, we have to go and get some boats from their relatives. And they went off to go get these boats, and the relatives were like, no, we're not giving you these boats. And so, and Galadriel was part of that group that was going to go and do that. And the relatives who had the boats essentially, saying no, was stopping them from getting the revenge that they wanted. And so the Galadriel's family essentially kills a bunch of them, or maybe all of them, I'm not sure. There was like this horrible thing that happened. And then Galadriel's family, she didn't take part in it, but she was like, I took their side. So they all get banished to Middle Earth. And I think I heard that Galadriel was not included in that banishment, but that she went anyway because she wanted to rule her own kingdom. She's like, wait, actually, I want to see Middle Earth, and I could totally be a queen there. So that's why she went, from what I hear. I may have it wrong, and if I do, please correct me. I, for some reason, am not getting everybody's messages, and that's really annoying me right now. So I got to figure out how to get everybody's messages. Okay, I read that one. Conan was rejected. Melkor created Mount Doom. The reason so. Okay, I got that one. That's so weird. I don't know why I'm not getting everybody's messages. I'm not sure how to fix it. Did I put some sort of a filter on? I want no filter. Okay. Matt says, the only real way to fix it is to get rid of everything not related to the forging of the rings. Yeah, that would have simplified it for sure. Then I think we wouldn't have had a lot of Galadriel as a main character. I think it would have been probably Elrond and what was the guy's name? I keep mixing up the guy's name. Celebrimbor? No. It's not Gil-galad. I don't think. I don't know. The guy who wants to forge the rings. BSR says, I think I would have had Galadriel go on a quest to cure the elven curse. She'd take Elrond and human guy with her. They would go to Moria, then onto Southland's Prophet. Do you mean, okay, to cure the elven curse, are you talking about them being banished from Valinor? That would have been maybe interesting, except that I think then it would be like, okay, once elves were going to Valinor, why does Galadriel stay until the very end? I don't know. That's an interesting. Go on a quest to cure the Elven curse. I'm not 100% sure if you mean being banished from Valinor. Dude Guy says, trying not to change much, but can we avoid Celebrimbor, mastersmith of mastersmiths, not knowing what alloys are? Yeah, that's a good point. Sorry, I hope I didn't blast into the microphone there. That did surprise me. I was like, how did this thousands-year-old guy not know about this? It was, yeah, one of those things where you intentionally make a character ignorant so that way somebody can come along and teach them what's right, but then it turns out that having them ignorant of this particular thing just makes them look stupid. Prototype says, can we change where Galadriel meets Sauron? Can't she just try to go into Numenor willingly and Halbrand is already there? I would have liked that. It was very coincidental that she jumps off the boat to find Sauron, and who does she meet immediately after that? Sauron. little coincidental there, unless it was like he was seeking her out, but even then, how did he know to get on that ship? Dane Bornhald, I think I would have changed all of Rings of Power. All of it was silly. Why not try a smaller story? That's a big one. The video game Shadow of Mordor, I hear, did this well. I haven't played any video games really. That's not what it was after my time. My family didn't have video games growing up. I was already in college by the time the first video game set came into our household. That was, yeah. Telling too complicated of a story is a big problem. Everybody's trying to be Game of Thrones, but what they fail to notice is that Game of Thrones started very focused. It was in Winterfell with the family there, and then the king arrives at Winterfell, and that's how we start to slowly learn about these other characters. But 90% of the drama was actually 100% of it basically was in Winterfell. Like, we didn't go to King's Landing. We were briefly at the wall, and then we get to Winterfell, and we're with these characters. We're learning about who they are, what they want to do, what the drama is between all of them, and it slowly splits. I think it's not even until the second episode where what's his face and the king, Sean Bean and the king leave Winterfell, and then we just have two groups. So we're not diving into all these other stories. Oh, and then we have what's her name? Blonde girl over on the other side. Okay, so that's two stories at the beginning. But again, they're just two plots, and then one of them splits into two, so then you have three. BSR says, I always figured Sauron created Mordor through years of corruption, not a Mordor button. Yeah. They defined it in a way that made it smaller than it always felt. That's just such a mistake. Dane, at Dane, that's a comment for Dane, not me. Prototype says, I really hate how Galadriel was rescued from being stranded in the middle of the ocean twice. Just have her hunt for Sauron, take her to Numenor in a normal way. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but she totally was rescued twice. She jumped off the boat and was picked up by the driftwood of the other shipwreck, and then that driftwood was attacked. There's only two left, and she gets picked up by the Numenorians. Like, yeah, that's a little silly. Two very strong coincidences, one happening right after another. That kind of happened in Rings of Power, where you would have information randomly come across characters very conveniently, without much of a lead into it. And that's trouble. It makes it look like your character. So people had this complaint about Harry Potter in the early Harry Potter books, that he got through his battles with Voldemort by luck. He defeated the bad guys through luck. And I think not Tolkien. What's her name? The lady who wrote Rowling. I think she tried to remedy that in the later books. Prototype says a normal way. Oh, I got it. I know what you meant. KCY says, I'd make Sauron the point of view character. That would be, you could do something really poetic with that, but I don't know if you could last a really long time, unless you wanted to start out, because wasn't he a good guy at first, and then he fell, and then he tried to be good again, and then he fell again. I haven't read the Silmarillion, so I don't know exactly, but something like that. But again, that's a rough one. I don't think it would have worked as a series. The Sword and the Pen Reflections. I don't remember where in History of Middle-earth it was noted, but Christopher Tolkien documented that Melkor or Morgoth, oh yeah, that's right, that's the same character, created Mount Doom very, very early in the First Age. Was it ever spelled out how he did it? Dude guy, Casey following oh, it's at Casey, not me. Prototype says, Elrond needed to ignore Durin for longer. 20 years is the blink of an eye for elves and dwarves. Yeah, I did think, I don't know if I recalled that it was 20 years that he hadn't seen them, but that is something to note. Dwarves live a very long time also. Also make the dwarf women have beards. I will actually say I thought that them putting just like the sideburns that go down like this, I was okay with that. I know that it was a joke in the later story, but I'm okay with them not giving the women like full-on beards, because I think that would look very silly. It would be extremely hard to do that and not look silly. So I think that having it just come down really low like this, I think that actually works. They could have had it more dramatic, I think, but full-on beards, I think people would have laughed. And that would have, I don't know. I guess I would have to see it done. Like if it's done really well, maybe, but that would be a tough one. BSR says, Durin could have gone to see him. Moria was apparently a short walk from the elven capital. Elrond and Celebrimbor didn't even pack a lunch to go there. Yeah, okay, that was definitely a weird thing. That it didn't feel like Middle-earth was really big. And I can't claim that I think that's just everybody noticed this. This is a big problem in a lot of the attempts to recreate these massive epics, which an epic is a story that takes place over, it's a world-spanning story, so you should be seeing a lot of the world. If it doesn't feel like your world is big, it won't feel real. It will feel like, well, it just won't feel epic for sure. And you can fix that so easily with just montages of them traveling. Like, think about in the Peter Jackson movies, how many times did we just have these really, really far back wide shots of people running across the mountains or hiking over a ridge or, crossing a river? No dialogue, just music, and they're traveling. That's how easy it is to give you that feeling. Let's see. Matt says, The Sword and the Pen Reflections. Morgoth stole the Silmarils and killed the High King of the Noldor. Feanor led most of the Noldor in defiance to get them back. This led to the first kinslaying. Yeah, and Feanor was Galadriel's uncle, if I recall, right? I think so. Or some relative of hers, and he liked her, and I know that the Silmarils were sort of inspired by her in some way. Like, he was inspired to make them because of her. Cursed Kelpie says, no, Feanor wanted his shiny rocks back from Melkor after he stole them and killed Feanor's father. Galadriel is banished as of Fellowship, but the professor had multiple versions. Okay, I did hear that too, that he but I didn't hear that he changed a whole lot. Were there really big differences in his different versions of what happened? Let me check the time really quick. All right, we got about 5 more minutes left, and then we'll take a quick 5-minute break. So let's get through some of these. BSR says, the vague curse that was killing the elven leaves. Oh, they needed the mithril to cure it for some reason. Is that lore? It didn't feel like it. And it felt kind of, again, sort of like the creation of Mount Doom and Mordor. It felt mechanical. It didn't, like, oh, we need the mithril to cure it. Okay. How does this, the tree has a fever, and the only prescription is more mithril. It felt small. It didn't feel like this mystical thing that was happening. And that's something that Tolkien was very good at. The soft magic of Middle-earth is so part of the feel of Middle-earth. I feel like they didn't understand that, the writers. Cursed Kelpie. Oh yeah, elf cancer. Louise X Sparrow. a lot of the script would need to be changed to make most of the characters even likable. Yeah, I definitely, I talked about it in my video about Galadriel, like how could we make her likable, somebody that we want to, somebody that we want to root for, we want to see as our MC, and I don't think a whole lot had to be done. The whole theory of saving the cat in the early, in the beginning, do something that is proactively, morally good, and that will be enough for us to latch onto it. But then you can't have them so disagreeable for the rest of it. I would have loved for us to have been on her side in everything she's doing. And then at a certain point, she takes it too far and we're going, wait a minute, like, okay, I was on your side until you did this thing. And then that's when we get her conversation with the elf guy who's been disfigured. Matt says, Celebrimbor was the leader of the Noldor Smiths, the Gwaithmirand. Mirdan? Did I get that right? And the one who forged the Rings of Power, other than, of course, the One Ring. Okay, yeah. Oh my gosh, am I that far behind? Likability wouldn't be the priority for these characters. Their stories need to make sense. Let's start with that, yeah. The Silmarillion is full of borderline evil characters, and we still love them. We love them because they are so defined. They are distilled characters. The fact that there were times when I thought that the guy who actually is Sauron wasn't up to something, like I was fooled and thought he was good and he was, saying the right things. I'm like, what? How is it you went from evil to this? And I'm wondering if they're going to explore that in season 2, because I didn't believe it. I was like, here's your big bad guy, but he's obviously a good guy here. There was a lot of missing information in that. But again, they didn't have time to explore it because they told too many stories. Save Yourself says, a common feature in modern TV is contrivances. Yes, the double ocean pickup for Galadriel is a perfect example. Yep, and it all points towards bad writers, I think is what you meant. But yeah, it's just not knowing what to do. So saying, well, how about then this happens? And if the thing that happens has no payoff later on, like I thought having a vision of some kind could be like the start of her having her ability to foresee, because she does develop that power. I didn't see any evidence of Galadriel having magical ability in Rings of Power. Did you guys? I don't remember. Nope, that's not for me. Cursed Kelpie. Sauron fell before the First Age started, in the time of the Two Lamps, I believe. Yes, which came before the trees, if I recall. Yeah, I think having a story about just Sauron would have been tough, unless you were going to go do it there. But then again, I think keep everything that happened in Valinor mysterious. Have it be myth and legend, part of the Middle-earth mythology that's just this huge tale we can't even illustrate for you. I like that idea more, but that's just me personally. I personally think Harry's luck was acceptable because he earned his good karma through suffering. I actually agree with that. I felt very sorry for Harry from the very beginning, and yeah, it's definitely and it's an entirely different kind of subject. Like how do you excuse a character not being deliberately responsible for success? And that's one way. That's why I actually was okay with in the Name of the Wind, Kvothe, things turning out for Kvothe, because I saw the process of him facing a challenge and then working to solve it. And the challenges were tough for him. They weren't, even though he didn't fail, he had failing. Yeah, he did have failures, but they weren't huge failures where there was this enormous loss for him. But I was okay with it because he did suffer a lot. He was shown to suffer a lot. All right, a couple more, then we take a break. Mr. Benair says, I would have Galadriel encounter Willow and apprentice to him to learn magic. Then they would protect Elora, who is the dragon reborn, and end up infiltrating a hidden fortress and blow it up. Nice. I love the crossovers. That's great. All right, one more. Day. I didn't like having Elrond with a 20-year mishap with Durin. His brother chose to be a mortal man. Elrond, maybe more than any elf, should understand about mortals having such much shorter lifespans. But when did that happen? Because they never mention. I guess that would be part of the decision to, what do we adapt conceptually? Because at that point you have to go, okay, what did how much of Elrond's story are we going to show? And in this case, they only show his relationship with Durin. They don't mention anything about Elrond having a brother, so we have to assume, unless it is mentioned, that Elrond doesn't have a brother. It'll be very weird if they start adding things like this in season 2, like Elrond, like, by the way, I had a brother, and he chose to be immortal, and we'll be like, then you go, well, wait a minute, then you should have understood that Durin's life is going to be over very quickly, and if you truly do value him, you should be part of his life. All right, we're going to take a quick break. So I want everybody it'll be 5 minutes from now. So we'll come back at my time, the 18 on the clock. But anyway, that's all I want to just make sure we all come back at about in exactly 5 minutes from now. So.
Hot stones to keep your bed warm here.
Hot stones?
He's a player. Oh, he's a player. He's a player. What? He's a player.
All right, we are back. Sorry, I don't know if it's obvious, but I start losing my voice pretty quickly after about an hour, so I need to take a minute to just breathe. So thank you for giving me that little moment there. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's see. I want to move us on to the next subject, which is okay. This will be an easy one. Let's talk about Rings of Power. I just want to open it up to discussions about anything Rings of Power, Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, like anything that we want to talk about. Like for me, I would love to talk about what show would you have done. I know we kind of touched on it a little bit in the first subject, but we didn't get as many suggestions as I was hoping. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of it before, but I saw it on Instagram. Somebody said that that Lord of the Rings and Middle-earth fans are missing out. We really would love to have a cozy fantasy that takes place in Hobbiton, where you're just following the lives of some hobbits on their daily lives. You know, maybe between Frodo and them leaving would be interesting, and coming back would be interesting. You know, stuff that's going on in Hobbiton, and you could even have the missing. What is it? The when Frodo and Sam and all those guys do return home. It wasn't in the movies, but they come home and Hobbiton is like destroyed. It's been taken over by I think it's Sauron and what's his face? The Wormtongue, and they have to kind of take back Hobbiton. It would have been interesting to do just regular stories in Hobbiton, and then if you wanted to, you could have it leading, that's the big climax, is that it gets taken over. I think you could even cut that out and just do cozy fantasy in Hobbiton. Have little mysterious things happening, encounters with elves, or like some rogue beast creature, fantasy beast creature comes and is terrorizing, the cows or something. I don't know. It would have been fun. All right, so I'm going to move up here to, let's see, I don't want to skip these ones that have my name in it. Tolkien left the exact year a mystery, but Sauron was corrupted by Melkor way before First Age, before the elves even awoke in around 1,000 of the years of the trees. Okay, so like really long ago. And again, see, like he left it mysterious. When you leave the specifics of events, you don't do any specifics for events, you just keep it vague. It makes it seem like this big epic thing that happened. Matt continues saying, the thing about elven souls fading, the relationship between Mithril and a Silmaril, are all completely contrary to actual canon. Is it? Yeah, it felt like it came out of left field. I don't recall this being like a plague that could take over the elves. It sort of takes away the idea of it being a choice to essentially reject the grace of immortality. When you turn it into a plague that they can't help, then it's like, yeah, it makes it something that's less important for them. Because they don't, it's not something that they decide to leave. It's like, oh, well, you became immortal, or you became mortal because you didn't have a choice. Like, it's a different type of drama. And again, that goes back to themes where the theme would be something else. The theme would be survival or preservation of the people. Oh, skip. Okay, prototype. Fëanor was a bit obsessed with Galadriel's hair because it had a light similar to the light of the two trees of Valinor, the same light he put in the Silmarils. That's right, I'm remembering that now. Dane Bornholt says, anytime there's a Tolkien lore question, we ask Matt. Huh? Am I missing some of this comment? I'm not sure what the rest of that says. Okay. Let's see. Summit. Oh my, look at the time. Yeah. Dude Guy says, with Galadriel, if she had paid consequences for her poor leadership in the show, she might have at least had an arc. That well said, Dude Guy. Because that, yeah, if she, so I wanted her to go through kind of the Theon Greyjoy treatment, where I wanted the things that she chooses to do, and she's like, yes, I'm getting what I want, end up being disastrous. Like, she thinks that, oh yay, I did it, but then it's like, oh yeah, you thought you did it, but guess what? That just helps Sauron become even stronger, and now everybody you love is suffering because of what you did. That would help us like her more. I know that it sounds like, well, wait, we don't want people to suffer, but we want her to be learning that lesson. In the end, I didn't feel like the creation of the rings and the creation of Mordor were her fault, really. She just was aware of what they were before they happened and couldn't stop them from happening. But they weren't a result specifically of her proactive choices. Let me know what you guys think of that. Elros became the first king of men and chose a mortal life at the beginning of the Second Age and led them to Numenor. Okay, that's Elrond's brother. Cursed Kelpie. Elrond having a brother is in the show. It is. I don't recall it. When did he talk about that? Of course, I've only seen the later episodes once, so it's been a while. As Elrond and Elros are half-elves, human father and an elf mother. Elrond is also half-human. But then are they given, if you're half human and half mortal, is it a choice to be the mortal? Like having any elf blood in you at all would be like, okay, now you're immortal. That's not what half-elven mean. Half-elven is a title that they possessed, indicating that they have the choice to choose between the fate of elves or men. Okay. Dane Bornhold says, and Hugo Weaving Elrond had a 5 o'clock shadow. Did he? Yeah, he did kind of. Let's see. Prototype says, at Matt, right. I was saying more to the point of him. Oh, that's not for me. Sorry. Summit says, it was so boring. Enough said. Yeah, I was bored. Katya says, rings of poo-poo. Winter Rose says, I'm going to be off now. All the best the rest of the stream. Night, everyone. Good night, Winter Rose. Thank you for being here. You've probably already taken off. Dane Bornhold says, the old toque and the invention of golf. That would have been kind of funny. I would have loved to have seen that. Cursed Kelpie. Galadriel is a stateswoman, not a warrior in the lore, like in House of the Dragon with Rhaenyra. I was very surprised that we were going to have Galadriel as a warrior and not at all explore that she is a sorceress. I think this is also why it was hard to connect her character here to who she becomes in, or who she is in Lord of the Rings. And I do recall people saying that the majority of her drama is internal. Like, she wants power. She wants to rule. She thinks very highly of herself. Like, I could rule a kingdom and do it well. And that's like what her main focus is. And instead what we have is we have her on this mission of revenge. I mean, it's just strayed from the source material, which, like I said, is not always the wrong choice. The problem is that they are very clearly trying to make a prequel to the Peter Jackson movies. And the character that we saw in the Peter Jackson movies was not the character that we saw in Rings of Power. And it's going to take a lot to create Galadriel. I think it's going to take the Theon Greyjoy treatment, honestly. Casey says, cozy guerrilla warfare in Hobbiton. Interesting. Yeah, I think I got into the battle because, like, as I was talking about cozy Hobbiton, it suddenly occurred to me. I was like, oh, wait, we had a moment of darkness in Hobbiton. It happened off screen in the Peter Jackson movie, so maybe we could actually put it on screen. But I still think, like, it would just be fun. Cozy fantasy in Hobbiton, and if you wanted to have it get dramatic, you could get it to that point. Mr. Benair, keeping up with the Brandy Bucks. Yes, I would love that. Oh my gosh, it could be a comedy. It'd be a fun comedy. And you could have scary things happen. I mean, there's a lot of terrifying creatures in Middle-earth that could wander into Hobbiton, and there's just no explanation for why we don't see them. I would have the show center on the creation of Numenor, Elros saying goodbye to his twin brother Elrond, and the leave for the island to create the largest empire. Yeah, again, there were things that they skipped in Rings of Power, and it would have been nice to have seen some of these events where they are the main event. You don't need to show everything that has happened between the elves landing in Middle-earth and Lord of the Rings, which because of the whole Isildur thing, it's like, that's what you guys are doing. You're going to take this all the way to essentially the glory and fall of Isildur. I don't know. I just think that it's too much. I think that they should have picked just one big event, or one event in the Silmarillion, and said, we're going to just do that and just expand on that a whole lot. Just have everything, a ton of drama happening around that particular event. I understand some people want cozy, but I need adventure and some action. I would watch a Lake Town Frontier show. Okay, like a fantasy bonanza Dr. Quinn medicine woman. Because yeah, I was thinking kind of that was from BSR. I don't know why my selected chat is like cutting off, but I think, yeah, that would be really cool. It kind of reminds me of in Star Wars doing The Mandalorian. Look at how focused that was. They just went after one character and said, what would this character's life have been like in this time period, And so they just went with it. They gave him his own plot, had events that we could recognize in kind of the background, and there was some shadow coming over into our story in the present, but they really, really focused on just the Mandalorian. And they could have done that, like what you're saying, a story about Lake Town, these people who have built their city, and it's like on the cusp of becoming industrious, but it's not, and they've got all kinds of politics of their own. And how much was it even explored in Hobbiton? Not Hobbiton, The Hobbit, not much. Pink Peonies. My goodness, thank you so much. $50. Holy cow. That's going to pay for, I'm thinking of switching to a streaming service, which is like $50 a month. So you'd be paying for a whole month of that. So gosh, thank you so much. Every little bit helps. Andrew Finger, I think Rings of Power failed because Amazon acquired the wrong rights. Yep, needed the rights to a single story from Silmarillion. The end of the book was not the place to start. Prove success, then get another story. Yeah, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with just doing like one little story and saying, let's just do this and see how it goes. And if it does well, then you're like, okay, give us more. Give us a more complex story. We'll do it well. Like, yeah. There's at least when I was in school, it was taught that if you want to be a writer, you should start out with short stories. And if you can succeed in short stories, then you do a novel. I disagree with that. I think you start with a short novel, novella, perhaps, because short stories are so finite. They're so tiny. And nowadays, a short story can be quite long, but I would have to turn in short stories that I could compose in a week. And I go, I'm sorry, I can't put together anything longer than like 15 pages at most in a week. And that's really pushing it. So like what the stories that you tell in 15 pages are going to feel very artsy. It's a particular kind of story, but you're not going to get things like epics. You're not going to learn how to write an epic from a short story. You'll learn how to do the small things like formatting. If you're going to have dialogue, you can figure out how to do that by doing a short story and going, did this work? Were people able to follow the dialogue well? Coming up with a voice, a POV voice, or whoever you've got narrating the story. If it's an external narrator or if it's a character in the story, you can experiment with that. But when it comes to developing a character, very difficult to do that in a way that doesn't. It's very difficult to do that in general in a short story without it being a very, very tiny feature in a character that they go through some experience. Curse Kelpie says, Elrond having a brother who was human is in the show, in the scene inside the library as they look at the bad painting. Oh, that's okay. That's why I don't remember it, because Elrond's not even in that scene. He's in the painting, right? I mean, that's like, yeah. It was offhandedly mentioned in which case then he should have known about Durin's life passing. Dude guy, the story of Sauron manipulating so many kingdoms and cultures into following him could be great, but instead it's mostly just him and Galad shouting on a boat. And then her going and shouting at the queen, and then shouting at Sauron again, and then the queen again. Day says, I think you can at least say that Galadriel's actions helped push Halbrand into position to create the rings and help create Mordor. Yeah, and then we're supposed to go, okay, now, was she the one who put him in that position, or did he manipulate her into doing this? Because remember, he didn't want to leave. What we were shown, we of the audience were shown of Halbrand in Numenor. He didn't want to leave. He wanted to stay in Numenor. And I'm going, okay, did he want to make the rings there? Wouldn't he need elves, the expertise of like the higher up elves who know how to do this kind of smithing? Like, wouldn't he need their assistance, or does he know? Is that why he wanted to become a blacksmith there? I don't know. It takes away from him if he's not the one manipulating her. Like, if we saw him doing that, first of all, it would have been obvious that he was a bad guy, because she'd be like, oh, why? It'd be like, why are you taking the advice of this human guy? And I don't know. But did it go over my head? Was he manipulating her in some way? Was he pulling all the strings and I just didn't notice it? I don't think so, because I was always under the impression that he just got dragged along on her journey until the very, like, towards the end when he showed up hurt. Somehow hurt. Pips says, got a fussy baby, so cannot stay on. Wanted to swing by and say hello and support the channel. Thank you so much, Pips. And am I seeing you on Monday? I think I might be seeing you on Monday. Cursed Kelpie. Sorry, I thought you would miss my other message. Papa? I'm not sure what that meant. So I must have almost missed one of your other messages. Mr. Benar, maybe a story about how the dwarves' greed led them to mine too deep. Yeah, that was kind of hidden as well. And we saw a little bit of it from Durin, but it was kind of cloaked in him wanting to, if I recall, kind of be somebody important, to do something that his father could be proud of. Bring glory back to the family, so that he's not just some family guy who ended up becoming the king after his dad. Pip says, have liked your channel since I found you and your first Wheel of Prime videos. Thank you. And I know, I'm pretty sure you're going to be in on the thing. I'm not going to go check, but I'm pretty sure we're talking on Monday. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Summit says, Seinfeldish Shire-based sitcom. I don't know, that's silly. I really love, like, those BBC murder mysteries. I adore them. And, there's a lot of them. They're really into, like, old ladies solving mysteries, and, or Father Brown, which is like a priest solving mysteries. And they're into that kind of stuff. And was that Father Brown? No. Anyway, you know what I mean? Like, unlikely characters becoming detectives, essentially. It's kind of like the Sherlock Holmes thing, except that, they give them quirky personalities. Think Psych and, what was it? Monk, right? Except in Great Britain, usually like, tea and crumpets and solving murders. The children of the union of men and elves are all born as elves. Some of them, the descendants of Erendil and Elwing, were granted the choice of the half-elven. Some of that is missing. Of the half-elven. Got it. Okay. Let's see. Joshua says, a show about Numenor and their obsession with living forever. That was an opportunity missed. What a deep subject to dive into. The idea that they were granted all this grace from the elves, but they themselves do not have immortality, and that becomes something that they obsess over and want. And it seems like we've heard that a lot in mythology before, but I feel like there's a lot you can do with that. Man was given the gift of death, and it would be interesting to see this explored, and man's rejection. Agreed. BSR says, the show thought it was saying one thing and really saying another, yeah. It thought the Harfoots were lovable, but they were bad dirt people that laughed at bee-related deaths. Bee-related deaths? I think I missed it. Bee-related deaths. Did they? There was a joke about being stung by bees. I must have missed that. Yeah, I didn't care for the Harfoots. I thought they were very boring, and yeah, I didn't feel that charm with them. And I think a lot of it has to do with not very many really lovable characters among them, except like the main girl. And her family was all right, but it was like, oh no, how are we going to survive? We're going to get left behind. Like, they're going to leave you behind? How are we supposed to like people who are like, oh, sorry, you sprained your ankle. We're out of here. Good luck with the wolves. Prototype says, I don't mind Galadriel knowing how to fight, but I hate that they took away her wisdom. Yeah, she's so perceptive. She's one of the elves who sees through Sauron's disguises when he tries to trick the elves. Yeah, I think that's in lore, but also just the fact that she's 1,000 years old by the time we see her in Rings of Power. I mean, it says so in the prologue, hundreds of years went by. And yet she doesn't know how to talk to people and get what she wants. Like, I'm just going to steamroll over you. Even when she doesn't have the power to do these things, she still does it anyway. And then she gets upset when she doesn't get her way. It's just very immature. She seemed like somebody who would not talk to people. I mean, how long does it take to learn that skill? For humans, maybe 20 years to be an adult and learning that. I mean, for people who aren't dumb or so stubborn that they can't even see what they're doing. So she was either dumb or so stubborn she couldn't see what she was doing, in which case I didn't believe that she could have gone that long without somebody basically slapping her in her face with her own stubbornness. Okay, let's see. Louise X Sparrow. I don't think they understand the material they do have to adapt. Everything we've seen suggests they don't. Yeah, they did miss some big themes. I think that they tried to focus on the theme that they had in mind, which is her redemption, but they missed the point that you have to want your character to be redeemed. And then, yeah, they focused too much on the big events and the action and not enough on the character development. Too many stories probably contributed to that. Don't spoil too much for her before she reads the books. We might confuse her if we try to explain everything. I think it'll be fine. I've heard so much of the lore just in pieces, so I have rough ideas of the things that happen. Dane Bornhold says, I always liked the tale of a dragon coming to take out a dwarven mine. I know this was explored in the Hobbit film, but I think it was done poorly. Dwarves are cool. More of that. Dwarves are cool, and I think that was one of the biggest charms of the Hobbit, especially the films, is they were neat. Like, we didn't see much of the dwarves except for Gimli in The Lord of the Rings. And I think that even just the scene in the very beginning where they're in Bilbo's house, and I loved that whole scene. I thought it was great. I like that they have their own, because they are old as well, like elves, that, tossing the plates around and not breaking anything, putting everything back right. But they're also, like these burly dwarves. I loved that. I loved it. Oh, that's not for me. KCY says, maybe switching from top chat to live chat would help with the missing messages. Top left corner. I do not have that option, I don't think, because I'm using something called Chat Ninja. It allows me to do this select chat thing. But I think actually all of the messages are there. They're just loading very slowly. Pips, Dane likes dwarves because they drink an appropriate amount. They do drink a lot. Louise X Sparrow says, hi, Pips. Oh, that's not for me. And Pip says hi back. BSR, why the Isildur fake out death? Isildur is the one guy we know survives until the last alliance. Where's the tension there? This is why I think, well, okay, maybe this was a thought. He dies, and the sister ends up having a kid, and it's a descendant of the sister's kids who is Isildur, because isn't she kind of flirting with the prince, right? That was my thought. That's what I thought they were going with that. Pips Yes. All right, really gotta run. I hear crying. Oh, sorry. Get to the baby. Have fun on the rest of the stream. We will. Let's see. Cursed Kelpie. Oh, that's not to me. That's not to me. That's not to me. This is. The show definitely makes it seem like Galadriel spurred Sauron out of evil retirement. Yeah, it does kind of. Like he was ready to become a good guy. But again, like I would have liked to have seen how the hell did that happen? That's something you could have explored. Like what was it that tempted him to leave his dark path? Cursed Kelpie. I repeated the message about Elrond's brother twice. Oh, okay, I got you. I see. Gosh, am I that far behind? Law and Order Hobbiton? Why not? Why not? You know, and this doesn't have to be the big epic. This is like its own show. Were you talking about Father Dowling? No, that doesn't sound right. It's something else. There are two BBC stories. One's a comedy, Father something, and then the other one is, it's more recent. And it's got the guy who plays Mr. Weasley. The actor who plays Mr. Weasley plays a priest who is, or a vicar, I'm not sure which, and he's solving crimes. What do you think about Tom Bombadil in season 2 of Rings of Power? Tom Bombadil he has such a distinct folklore feel to him. I will be rather surprised if they can pull it off without changing him a lot and him still feeling as big as he did in the books. Like in the books, he's this, quirky, charming character, and he's got, I forget the name of the lady that he essentially kind of worships and protects her. And there's a big mystery behind them because doesn't he has the opportunity to or I think he touches the ring but is unaffected by it. There's something obviously very big about him. He is very separate from the rest of Middle Earth in a mysterious grand way. And I don't trust Amazon to convey that mystery. I think they're going to try to define it in some way. And I don't think that will work. I think it will, again, make him feel small. And he's a mysterious character with a very folklore-y sort of feel to him. Mr. Benair says, how about a story of Galadriel and Sauron shipwrecked on an island, learning to survive together and get along, explore and discover the mystery of the island? That's very different from what I would have thought, but no. I don't know why, but I keep thinking of Captain Jack Sparrow and what was the chick's name when they were stranded on the island and she dumps out all the rum. Why is the rum gone? Make the main character Celebrian. Is it Celebrian? I'm not sure how you say that. Galadriel's daughter and Elrond's, I think, wife is what you meant to say. And do a smaller but still interesting story. Celebrian almost has a blank slate in the lore. See, that I think would have been a good option. You can do anything with that character as long as they don't destroy some other lore thing. You could do what you want. Plus, she is born early second age, so it would make sense for her to be more reckless and not as wise, just like Rings of Power Galadriel. Yeah. Galadriel has 1,000 years of autism. She doesn't have that excuse. She's supposed to be perfect being. Band of Brothers, the Men of Rohirrim, a group of civilians turned soldier. They try and save their loved ones, face the war and their doom. The point of view of peasants turned warriors versus kings and heroes. That actually could have been cool. I like that idea. That's neat. Why? Is that really the story of it's the Riders of Rohirrim? I can't remember if it's Warriors of Rohirrim. I don't remember. I'm again, that's from Zyapsiv. Yeah, that would have been a neat story. You would have had, I don't know, is there would you have the missing presence of the elves? How involved are the elves in the story of Rohirrim? Which, aren't they doing a animation about that? I don't know. I think they are. The Laughing Wolf. Hey, haven't seen you in a while. Also curious on your take about including Tom Bombadil on what is essentially fan fiction. Yeah, that was, I talked about that. Definitely, I'm very, I'm not very optimistic. I really think that he's too mystical of a character with too much quirkiness that is very distinctive to Tolkien's style of writing, and they didn't have that quirky charm. I think they tried it in the Harfoots and just failed. Cursed Kelpie, what do you think about the relationship between Galadriel and Elrond in the show in terms of Elrond marrying Galadriel's daughter? It was, I didn't see it leading there. I mean, Galadriel doesn't even have other than Halbrand, which I felt very much like they were trying to hint that Galadriel and Halbrand might have a romance, but I didn't really, I don't know, unless I'm forgetting it, I don't recall seeing that it actually was, but I think that they were trying to like suggest that maybe it would be, and I think they thought that would be like, whoa, we wanted her to get together with Halbrand, but turns out he's Sauron, and and then she's super betrayed. But again, I didn't feel, there was something missing in that, and it felt like that was pushed in there specifically for that. If she thinks so highly of herself, especially over humans, then maybe that should have been explored, that maybe he has this wisdom or this appreciation for the frailty of life that she doesn't have. But then again, you have him be Sauron and it kind of takes that all away. Then it was all an act. But he didn't act like he was trying to pull strings. It seemed like he was along for the ride and then decided at the last minute, I'm going to make some rings. Friends of Khazad-dûm, perhaps? Oh, that would be funny, taking place in Khazad-dûm. I don't think I would like that. I think I would want things happening above the ground, because that's where most of, I wouldn't say most of the Middle-earth adventures happen, but that's part of why we want to be in Middle-earth, is the feel of the rural areas of England. Middle-earth is modeled after that, I believe. The Harfoots storyline is the most obvious corporate mandate one, in my opinion. It reeks of executives wanting people to remember Frodo and Gandalf. Yes, it definitely does. And I think that's why they don't really do anything important. What do? They found Gandalf and convinced him that he's good when he didn't know if he was good or evil. It was very weird. B.O.B. style show centered around a group of Rohirrim, Band of Brothers, who survived the fords of Isen. Is that short for Isengard? I don't know. And then the Hornburg, then Pelennor, and then the Black Gate would be fantastic. If I knew all the lore, I'd probably be like, yeah. Save Yourself says, in the Lord of the Rings game, one of these games, there's a dwarf quest where you get to experience the fall of Moria. The goal, make an end worthy of song. Oh, I like that. That sort of reminds me of, doing something for a greater cause than your own personal gain. Do something because it's the right thing to do. That's a big theme in Tolkien's work, is sacrifice for the greater good. The greater good being something that's even greater than the survival of all people. BSR, the sister would have to marry a guy with her dad's name. Not impossible, but very suspect. The sister would have to marry a guy. The sister would have to marry a guy with her dad's name. What am I missing? Did I forget? What sister are we talking about? Oh! No. I mean that she would marry him, and then their children, going on and on and on, eventually one of the great-great-great-grandchildren would be the Isildur that we know of in Lord of the Rings. That's what I meant. I see what you mean. Matt. Show Galadriel's story arc. Revenge for her brother is stupid. By the time the rings were forged, her brother had already reincarnated in the Undying Lands. Yeah, that's if you're following the lore, though. And if you're not, I still think that it was just not very focused. The story that they chose to tell felt like they were constantly doing different things, and it didn't feel like it all came together. Like, think about how much of the Lord of the Rings trilogy was about men coming together to stand up to evil, even if it was at the cost of themselves. And then you have the elves joining that fight at certain points. It's about that. Tom Bombadil should be in Keeping Up with the Brandy Bucks, not Rings of Power. He's too funny for this. Oh, sorry, I didn't select that. That was from Prototype. Yes, that's funny. I like that. BSR, I've given up on them doing a good show. So for season 2, I just want a full-on dumb. I want Matt Berry doing kung fu in big boots. That would be hilarious. I would love to see them try to resurrect this. It's never going to be a spectacular show. This is not going to become something really, really great because they have ruined the foundation. Not completely. Okay, I said ruined, but that's too extreme. They have not created a foundation that feels earned or strong in our wanting characters to succeed, our wanting evil to be destroyed. They have not established that very well. And so moving into season 2 and trying to spring that up out of something, it's hard to do. You know, when you start out really rough, it's hard to do. It's hard to bring it up out of the grave. Matt says Kelly Bryan is pronounced Kelly Bryan. Did I get that right? Kelly Bryan? Okay, I hope I have that. Kelly Bryan? I'm still struggling. Okay, Prototype says, chat is coming up with so many tonally different show ideas. I do believe that's a strength of Lord of the Rings. You can have stories exploring war and death and also more cozy stories. Yeah, like think about Sam and Frodo. Oh, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I have like, when you guys leave emojis, it floats around in my screen. So I just had a funny one floating around there. But Sam and Frodo, the big drama between them, their big story was just about the loyalty of friendship, you know, or the loyalty between two friends, their love for each other, specifically Sam's love and support of Frodo's. Like he would do anything for Frodo. He's so loyal, and that was so strong. I mean, everything that you saw in their story, you know, Frodo had his own things, you know, fighting his demons, you know, trusting a good person. Like his lesson should have been to trust Sam, who he's always loved and trusted, but, you know, he turns against him and he can't even see that he's done the wrong thing because of the influence of the ring. Like for me, I always see Frodo's struggle. I know it has a lot to do with, at least in, nice, thanks for the beer, guys. I know that that Tolkien wrote Frodo's struggle as sort of an exploration of the things that happen in war, like PTSD, you know, the warping of the mind, believing that certain things are when they aren't, as, you know, a struggle with PTSD. But I see a drug addict. I see that Frodo has become some sort of an addict, and Sam is the one who is the sober person supporting him. And Frodo, unable to even see past his own delirium because of the influence of the ring, suddenly believes that Sam, who's always been there for him and been supportive of him, is against him. And yeah, oh my gosh, we are running out of time. Got 5 minutes. Let's get through this. Dang, I really could have gone on for like another half hour at least. You're right. It's Father Brown on BBC. Yup. Who original series stories by Chesterton, who was actually a good friend of Tolkien. Really? Was he part of the group that would meet at that one restaurant? It might be. I think he was. They were like writing buddies, Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and some other guy, and it might be that person. The Laughing Wolf. The spin-offs of all sound so much better than what Amazon delivered. Yeah, they do. Save your elf. Doesn't matter what happens, you will die, but it's how you go out. Yes. I like that. Just death in itself is a huge theme in Tolkien as well. Like think about all the elves, like making the choice to be mortal or immortal. Day or Dae, I still don't know how to pronounce that. The worst part about season 2 is that the actor who played the evil elf isn't returning. By far the most interesting character, and I thought that the actor was fantastic. Yeah, I liked him too. That discussion that he has with Galadriel in the shed was captivating, and it was a turn for her character as well, which was, I think also we give a lot of weight to that character because he was the one who influenced her to realize like, oh, or maybe not to realize, but to suddenly become aware that there's something off. You know, we see, or the audience becomes aware. Sorry, not her. I'm not even sure how aware she was until Mordor exploded. Summit, can fan fiction really be applied to these Amazon shows when they are clearly not fans of the original material? Good question. See, that becomes a question with all the fans. Like, it looks like what they've adapted is in protest of the source material in a way. Okay, I know The Witcher was definitely that. Okay, I can't say I know that, but from the many sources that I have heard, that seems to be what happened in The Witcher. That it was like, we don't like what The Witcher was, and so we're going to write something else. It's like, so why adapt The Witcher? The Laughing Wolf. Cattle die, kinsmen die. What lives on is the fame of dead men's deeds. Nice. Cursed Kelpie. I think a show or movie about the First Age would be hard to sell since people love the hobbits the most in the movies. They aren't mentioned before the Third Age. Yeah, but I don't know if you have to have the hobbits. I don't think you have to have the hobbits at all in the series, depending on what you're doing. Summit. They skipped the foundation and just started building their house on the beach with the tide coming in. Yeah. Great Grebo. Hello. Glad to be here to catch this. Oh, you were the one who sent that. Hello, chat. Floyd Salazar, hello to you. I haven't seen anything from you in here. We're kind of closing it up because we're approaching the end. That is not for me. Celebrian. Okay, I think I know what you're helping me with the pronunciation. Brie, not Brie. Okay. Celebrian. Hope I have that right. Luke, thank you for that. Dane Bornhold, thank you for the beer. Testing beer. Summit says clink. BSR, I'm less interested in lore accuracy and more excited about them creating an original story that captures the spirit and tone of the original Peter Jackson trilogy. Yeah, that was the experiment that I ran with my video, was what if all I had was the Peter Jackson movies? What would I have written? What information could I gather from the movies to create a good prequel? And I think that they failed even to do that. It's really quite sad. I think that they could have taken the themes, taken the tone, the spirit and tone, as you say, and figured something out, even if they couldn't adapt the events of the Silmarillion. And I think they would have come up with something that could still honor the world of Tolkien. And if it was done well, we would say, okay, that was a fan-approved fan fiction, but at least it would have felt like it fit. Cursed Kelpie, thanks for the monster. Great Grebo, with Tolkien, his I make an E sound. Oh yeah, okay, Latin pronunciation. And Laughing Wolf says beer. Are there more text messages that I'm still not getting? There are. See, my feed is slow. And that's a big problem that I will have to solve next time. But I got a couple messages here. I'm less interested in lore accuracy. Okay, we've got that. We got the beer. Alan Bird says, we just have a lot of fun talking about this in just storytelling and logical points. Yeah. Skippy Longshake sent me a heart. Thank you very much. Dane Bornhold says, the Eagle and Child in Oxford. Been there. It's a cool pub. Oh, yeah, that's the pub that the pub that I was talking about that they met in. And I think is it Chesterton? I'm not sure I'm getting the name. I'm so bad with names. I'm terrible with names. But anyway, that is actually it. We have gone a full hour, and I just have to say thank you to all of you guys for coming in, especially to those of you guys who left super chats, and to my patrons. Like, you guys seriously are the reason I'm able to continue doing these. And gosh, maybe I should make this longer. I don't know if my voice would last. I'd have to build up some endurance with my voice. Great Grebo says, your feed is on top chat, so you aren't seeing all the messages. I think I am actually. They're loading slowly into my chat ninja. I'll have to figure that out. But anyway, so I just want to say thank you very much to everybody who came, and like I said again, to my patrons and to anybody who left me a super chat. Seriously, that every little bit helps. And if I continue having a lot of difficulty with this particular streaming platform, I'll go ahead and switch to the one that costs money, and you guys are the ones that are paying for it. So again, thank you so much. But anyway, I think I gotta end it right there. So please like, subscribe, and comment, even if it's just with an emoji. It's a free way to support the channel. Or if you're feeling generous, check out my Patreon, Ko-fi, or you can hit the Money Heart Thanks button down below. You can leave a tip or subscribe. I guess that's it. Be good to yourself.